Dear students, welcome to a new video today. In today's video, we will discuss about the basics of ecosystem, the structure, type, function and the threat to the ecosystem. So let's start. First, we will see what is an ecosystem. It is a community of living organisms, that is the plants, animals or microorganisms which has life, interacting with each other and their non-living environment. What is non-living environment? It is the air, water, soil, sunlight which surround us within a specific area. So it is basically the interaction of the living component and the non-living component within a specific area. This interaction creates a complex interconnected system where their energy flows and nutrients are recycled to sustain life. So the work of ecosystem is to sustain life within it. Then comes the key components of ecosystem. First comes the biotic component, or also known as living component. The biotic components includes the components which have life. It is again divided into three parts. First comes the producers, also known as autotrophs, the organisms like plants or algae that can produce their own food through photosynthesis with the help of sunlight, regarded as the producers or autotrophs. Then comes the consumers or heterotrophs. The organisms that depend on others for food are called consumers or heterotrophs. There are three types of consumers. First comes the herbivorous, then comes the carnivorous, then omnivorous. The herbivorous feed on the plant. They are dependent on the plants for their food. Then comes the carnivorous, which feed on the animals. They are dependent on the animals for their food, like tiger or lion or the crocodiles. They are the carnivorous. And the herbivorous are the deer, the rabbit. These are the herbivorous. Then comes the omnivorous. They feed on both the plant and animals. The omnivorous depends on both plants and animals for their food. Then comes the decomposers, the organisms like fungi or bacteria that break down the dead material and recycle the nutrients into the ecosystem. So the components which decompose the dead material is known as decomposer, and their work is to recycle the nutrients into the ecosystem. So they are also very important part of the ecosystem. These are the biotic components of the ecosystem. Then comes the abiotic or non-living components, which is again divided into two parts. First is physical factors, that is the sunlight, the temperature, the water, air, soil. Organisms of the ecosystem depends on all of this to sustain the life. Then comes the chemical factors, the nutrients, the pH levels, the minerals. All are the chemical factors of the ecosystem on which the life depends. These are the abiotic component of the ecosystem. Then comes the types of ecosystem. First comes the terrestrial ecosystem, the forest, the grasslands, the deserts or the tundras, all are the terrestrial ecosystem. These are present in the terrestrial part of the earth. Then comes the aquatic ecosystem. This is again divided into two parts. First comes the freshwater ecosystem. The rivers, the lakes, the ponds and the wetlands are the freshwater ecosystem. Then comes the marine ecosystem, the oceans, the coral reefs or the estuaries. These are the marine ecosystem. Then comes the artificial ecosystem. These ecosystems are human-made systems like gardens or aquariums or urban parks. These are also ecosystems and these are made by human. So these are known as artificial ecosystems. Then the functions of ecosystem. First comes the energy flow. We know sunlight is the primary energy source. The ultimate source of energy is sunlight. The plants use this sunlight to make their food, and from this energy flow through the food chain, starting from the plants, starting from producers to the various levels of the consumers. The nutrient cycling, we have already discussed that the decomposers are mainly responsible for the nutrients cycling. The nutrients like carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus are recycled through the biogeochemical cycle in the ecosystem. Then the regulation of the climate. The ecosystems regulate the local and global climate through process like photosynthesis or respiration, etc. We get the fresh air, the oxygen from the ecosystem, and the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide eliminated by this ecosystem. Also, this ecosystem support biodiversity. The ecosystems provide habitat and resources for a diverse range of organisms. These ecosystems are home to various organisms. Also, it provides resources like food, water, fuel, fiber, and medicinal resources. So it also supports the biodiversity. Then comes the threat to the ecosystem. What are the threats for the ecosystem? First comes the deforestation. Eliminating forest is a great threat to the ecosystem. Then comes the pollution, the air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution are also threat to the ecosystem. They are destroying the ecosystem. Then comes the climate change. The habitat destruction is also a threat to the ecosystem, and the overexploitation of the resources is also destroying the ecosystem. These are all the threat to the ecosystem. Then comes the conservation of ecosystem, which is very much necessary nowadays. Promoting sustainable practices like wise use of sustainable resources, the conservation, and promoting the use of the renewable energy will conserve the ecosystem. Also following the policies and rules and regulation to conserve the ecosystem will also help to conserve the ecosystem. Also, community involvement is very much necessary to safeguard the ecosystem. And protecting natural habitat and wildlife will also help to conserve the ecosystem. Then restoring the degraded ecosystem, there should be restoration of the degraded ecosystem. Reducing pollution, carbon emission, which is responsible for the destruction of ecosystem. So we should first reduce the pollution and carbon emission, which will ultimately help for the conservation of the ecosystem. These ecosystems are very essential to maintain the life on earth, and it is needed for the survival and well-being of the society. So it is the duty of each and every human being on the earth to work towards the protection of the ecosystem. So this is all about the ecosystem. I will come with another interesting topic in my next video. This is all for today. Thank you.